Check 1, 2. Looks like it's working. We'll see how good it works and go from there. So anyway. Okay. So anyway. So, I think I got it now. All right. So, I'm going to switch this. Okay, we go like this. Remove this here. Where'd it go? All right. Oh, that's on the wrong side. Okay, this goes over here. Oh. All right. So anyway. So this is all right. So this one is called How to Find. Is it working? It's working. Finally. So, how to find monster trout. On a regular basis. So the biggest lie in trout fishing so I think there's something else. But I don't know if I have it scripted right. Excuse me. I can't really see anything like that. Okay, this is not going to work. I'm just going to go out of here. Okay, so yeah, the biggest lie in trout fishing is that the monster is some kind of genetic freak. The truth is they're practically a product of their environment. Um, they're simply the survivors, the ones that got smart. While 99% of anglers are fishing for that 99% of trout that are easy to catch, the true trophies we're talking fish over 20, 25, and even 30 inches, playing a different game. They have different needs, they have different habits, and they follow a different set of rules. Most anglers spook these fish before their fly even touches the water. They walk right past their lairs without even knowing where they were. Today, we could change that. We're going to stop thinking like fishermen and start thinking like the fish. We're turning into, we are turning this into a form of a game of chance. We're turning this from a game of chance into a calculated hunt. And it starts right now with a huge shift in how you see the river itself. So before we can even think about touching a map, we need to rewire our brains. We have to ditch the idea of luck from our fishing vocabulary. Luck is passive. It's something that just happens to you. Hunting a trophy trout is an attractive, deliberate process. Something you make happen. The first step is to accept the simple, powerful truth. Big trout aren't everywhere. They're in very specific places and for very specific reasons. They're driven by three primal needs: security, food, and saving energy. Think about it from the trout's point of view. 28-inch brown didn't get that big by being stupid. It survived eagles, otters, and 1,000 anglers by not sitting out in the open. It survived by finding the safest, most food-rich, lowest effort spot in the entire river. Your job isn't to randomly stumble upon that spot, it's to predict where it has to be. This is the core of the system. We stop seeing a river as just a big body of water and start seeing it as a mosaic of habits. Sorry, a mosaic of habitats. Only a tiny fraction of those habitats are good enough for a real monster. These fish are lazy. They want the most calories for the least amount of work. They want protection from predators and from the crushing force of the main current. This means we'll almost always be near three things: depth, structure, and current seams. Depth is safety. Structure, a log jam, an undercut bank, a huge boulder, a shield, a resting spot, and a current seam. That's the conveyor belt bringing dinner right to their door. Most anglers fish the easy way, the pretty looking runs in the middle of the river, but the monsters live in the really nasty stuff. They live where it's hard to cast, where you're guaranteed to snag a few flies, where most people just walk on by. There are under log jams, deep inside undercut banks, and in the darkest, deepest pools that look plain intimidating. Our system is built on finding those prime lies before we can even leave the house. We're going to use data, maps, and a bit of biology to create a high probability hit list of spots. It's time we trade wishful thinking for a targeted, intelligence-driven plan. When we finally step into the river, it won't be to search, it'll be to execute, to hunt a specific fish in a specific spot we've already identified. That's the difference between playing the lottery and building your own success. So let's get into the first piece of the puzzle: understanding the trout's highway. Decoding the trout routes. So if you want a monster, stop thinking about a single spot and start thinking about a network. Trout, especially the big predators, don't sit still. They move, they migrate, sometimes in a short trip or 100 yards between a winter hole and a summer feeding area. Other times, It's an epic journey. Other times it's an epic journey. Okay. For example, some populations of bull trout will travel over 100 miles to a big lake or river way up into the tiny headwater streams to where they're born. Through these migration distance can vary a lot, though these migration distances can vary a lot depending on the river system. These predictable paths are what I call trout routes, and learning to spot them is our first practical step. These routes aren't random, they're about security, food, energy, and that powerful urge to spawn. We can break them down into three main types: seasonal, feeding, and spawning. First up, seasonal routes. Trout are total devos about water temperature. For most species are happiest somewhere between 45 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But keep in mind, trout have slightly different tastes. Brook trout, for instance, prefer 50 to 55. When temps change, fish move in the summer heat, they push upstream for cooler, more oxygenated water and hang out near the cold feeder creeks. In the dead of winter, they'll often slide downstream to find slower, deeper pools where the water is more stable. Knowing this, it'll help you to predict where the fish are concentrated. In summer, I'm looking for the upper parts of the river, the mouth of the cold creeks. In winter, I'm focused on the deepest, slowest pools in the lower river. It's a predictable shift. So what I have been doing in trying to narrow things down, I have the trout DNR data, and it tells us where the trout have been shocking survey results, and the size of these fish and the years that they were in there. And I actually have some tracking data that I got from a fisheries manager about brown trout movement. So I put it in play the last couple of years and ended up one day with what was it? 17 and a half, a 19 and a half, and a 20 and a half, I think, 3 fish in one day. So that was great. I nailed them. I also caught a tiger muskie and 3 monster pike, and then about 3 or 4 more big browns, up to about 18. So it finally paid off for me, all the information. Early spring, I knew right where the wintering river was that they stayed in, and the mouth that they came up, and I actually found them, and it was one of the best days I've ever had. So anyway, yeah, in the spring, it goes from about 40 degrees, you'll start to try to get some action, and to 40 to 45 degrees. Once you're at about 45, it's great. If you go to the Driftless, you got the 48-degree springs where that's great in the summer, and in the winter, summer it's a lot colder. Winter, it's a lot warmer. So there's a lot of springs out in the Driftless area, so it's totally different. So you want to be in the lower third of the river in the spring. Summer, you want to be in the middle section, and in the fall, you want to be in the top third. It's generally how these fish move, but it depends on temperatures, rains, floods, droughts, and time of day, and runoff, and things like that. So there's quite a few factors in trying to find these fish. Some years I'm right on top of them. Other years I can't find them for the life of me, and my timing was off, such as last year. Well, last year was a lot of flooding on my days off, and very difficult season. I'd had 5 to 7 days off, and I would be back in 2 because it was milk chocolate and unfishable. So weather, huge deciding factor also if you work for a living. So so the next feeding routes, the daily commute. Big trout are often active during low light periods from dawn till dusk. They'll move from their favorite safe spots in deep structure to shallower feeding zones. This could be moving from a deep pool in an adjoining riffle to hunt bait fish. Big brown trout are famous for their night moves, sliding into shockingly shallow water under the cover of darkness to ambush prey. The pattern is the key. You could pound a deep hole all day with no luck, only to find out the resident monster swims 100 yards upstream to feed in 2 feet of water for an hour at sunset. If you understand this commute, you can intercept the fish where it's most vulnerable and it's actively hunting. So I've done this the last couple of years. I've done night fishing in the pitch black dark. Supposed to fish it upstream in the shallow water. Fished on some bridges, and I use mouse patterns, and you splash them and you pull them. And I had quite a few slurps. Never got the hook set. Caught some brookies. Caught some smaller browns on crawlers and on a different section. But the people that do this, you don't see many videos about it. You see some people doing drift boat fishing for these in the dark on the White River and Muskegon and Michigan, and they have great success with huge articulated patterns. And the guys that fish them at night and have the success at night, they don't even bother fishing during the daytime because it's so good and the fish are so big. So and I've talked to a guy up in Langley County, and he caught 3 big ones, and a bat was in one of the stomachs, a snake was in the other stomach, in another stomach, and of course a mouse was in one of the stomachs. And we're talking fish that were 28, 30 inches. And I know they're in there. That's where I lost my 30-incher. It was up in the same river that I saw the guy. So yeah, there's something to it, but very difficult. Your senses are on alert, and your sensory deprivation is weird. The animals, darkness, it's crazy. But I'm going to put some more time in on that because I believe that's your ultimate best chance of catching these monsters is when they're not worried about the predators. So finally, and maybe most importantly, the spawning routes. The drive to reproduce is the single biggest reason why trout migrate. Brown and brook trout spawn in the fall, rainbows in the spring. During these times, they travel sometimes for miles to find clean gravel beds with a steady flow of cold, clean, oxygenated water. The habitat is almost always in smaller tributaries and headwaters. This is when the fish spend all year in a huge, inaccessible river or a deep lake suddenly become concentrated and rechargeable in smaller water. This is hands down the best time of the year to target a true fish of a lifetime because they're on the move, aggressive and pocketed into predictable locations like the spawning beds. The key is to definitely find them on these tributaries, the spawning highways, and be there when the migration kicks off. I'm not a fan of that. I don't go in and catch them off their spawning beds. I have run into wild spawning browns and big ones coming out of main stems out in towards the western Wisconsin. And yeah, these fish are 20 plusers. They look like lake run. And I caught some nice ones. But I have underwater video filming and above water filming of 3 times that I ran into the wild spawning browns. I used to catch steelhead on their spawning beds. But I never had the wild trout until the last 5 years, and I got documentation of 3 streams. It was awesome. But I don't waste my I don't spend my time to target these fish when they're on their beds. I leave them alone. I mean, I could make some videos, but I don't feel like taking advantage of it. So how do you find these routes? Start with the big picture. Look at a whole river system. Find the main river, the big tributaries, and the headwaters. Think about the seasons. Where will the fish go to beat the heat? Where will they hide in the winter? Then identify those spawning tributaries by hiking these routes, often in person or virtually with the tools we're about to talk about next. I use my drones myself to find sections of river. You can pinpoint the key holding water along the way by understanding these routes. You're not just fishing a spot, you're fishing an entire system. So section 3, step 2, hacking the system with the DNR data. All right, this is where we go from theory to intel gathering. This part may feel like cheating, but trust me, it's just being smart. Every state has a Department of Natural Resources and a Fish and Wildlife Agency, and their biologists are consistently studying fish populations. They generate a massive amount of data, and the best part A lot of it's public. Using this information is the single fastest way to confirm a river has the potential to grow monster trout, or they've shocked monster trout. We're looking for two main types of data: electroshock surveys and stocking reports, which I use religiously from year to year to year. And compare the sizes and the numbers and the sections of where they're found. Electroshocking surveys are when biologists use a tool temporarily stun the fish section of river to count, measure, and weigh them before their release. These surveys are an incredible snapshot of a river's fish population. The reports can tell you what species are there, how many are there, and most importantly for us, the size of the fish. When I get my hands on a survey, I'm a detective looking for clues. I'm not just checking if they are trout. I'm looking for proof of giants. Does this report mention brown trout over 20 inches? Does it show a healthy number of big fish? Some reports have graphs showing how many fish are caught in each size class. I see a graph bars stretching into 24, 22, 24, or even 26-inch category. That water goes straight to the top of my list as hard proof. Now, finding this data requires some digging. I'm not always a simple PDF download on a website. You might find it an interactive map, or you might have to search fisheries reports or trout management plans. So all that information is great to read and study and learn from. Sometimes you may even have an email a regional biologist, which I personally did with the guy from Oconto County. Great guy. Talked to him for hours on the stream and kept in contact with him. He's given me some study reports of his own personal study of not planting and just letting the wild trout repopulate. He's got a 5-year study that I'll be getting back to him on that in 2 more years, I believe. And comes in all shapes and sizes, and there's gold in there. For example, I was researching a river and I found a report where biologists noted that they found several wild browns over 25 inches in a 1-mile stretch full of log jams. That's a treasure map. The state has done the hardest part. They've confirmed they're giants there. There's quite a few rivers that I know with those types of fish existing, and I could tell you, but you'd have to find it yourself. The second piece of the puzzle is stocking reports. A lot of anglers lock down the stocked fish, but they're missing the point. For some states, stock trophy-sized breeder trout or brood stock, and the reports tell you exactly where. But more importantly, a heavy stocked river is a buffet line for wild resident monsters. Those big predatory browns learn to feast on all those 8 to 12-inch meals. They set up shop in prime spots just downstream of a stocking pond, wait for dinner to be served. This data-driven approach removes guesswork, and you're no longer hoping a river holds big fish, but you're fishing waters where you know they exist. No, I never thought of that before, really. Section 4, Step 3, Armchair Scout, Maps and Satellite Imagery. So now that DNR has potential pointed us to the right rivers, it's time to become an armchair scout. This is where we do our hiking virtually using tools like Google Maps and traditional topo maps. We can pick apart a river from home, identifying exact spots where a monster trout will most likely be. The point is to be efficient on the water. We're not going to the river to find spots. We're going to the river to fish the spots we already found. Let's start with Google Maps satellite view. The tool is ridiculously powerful. The first thing I do is trace the entire river. I'm researching, looking for visual clues. Well, I first check what's trout water, what's marginal. That's for spring. And what sections hold the best shocking numbers, and narrow it down from there rather than just generally just jumping in. And once the section's good, I'll fish a different section of the same river, and it just gives you endless opportunities. On satellite view, deep pools and runs look dark blue or black. I'm especially interested in outside bends on a river. Water flows fastest on the outside of a bend, carving out the bank and creating a deep protected water. These are classic undercup banks. I'll drop a pin on every big outside bend that shows a dark water signature. I call them layers. Next, I'm looking for structure, anything that breaks the current and provides cover. Zoom in, you can often spot fallen trees, which are log jams, and you can see big boulders that create calm pockets behind them. Mark every single significant piece of structure that you see. A deep, dark outside bend with a massive log jam as a 5-star monster lair. I also look for transitions of where a fast riffle dumps into a slow, deep pool. Big fish love to sit right at the head of the pool waiting for the flood, waiting for the food. Google Earth Pro has even more features like historical imagery slider that lets you see photos from different dates. Why does it matter? In case it's a drought year or it's a flood year, you might find a photo during a drought where the river is low. You might get clues about the underwater structure, the larger boulder fields, or old channels that are totally invisible to normal flows. It's like seeing the river's secrets. But satellite maps don't tell the whole story. This is where the old school topo comes in. Topograph maps show you the terrain where contour lines are packed tight along a riverbank. It means a steep. I'm tired. It's late. Steep drop off or a cliff. And it's a great site for a deep plunge pool. They're also the best for figuring out access points and trails when I go out to the driftless area. You get 800 to 1200 foot bluffs. And if you don't use that topo, you're going to be in for a long walk and you might not get in or get out. And it's going to be incredibly difficult. So that's a must know. I generally have an idea of what streams have the limestone bluffs and love the scenery, and the Kickapoo is one of them, and it's just phenomenal. Very difficult to get in and out though. So the process about layering all this information, I open Google Earth and a topo map side by side. I trace the river, making every deep pen, log jam, and tributary marking. Then I use the topo map to understand the gradient and plan my route. By the time I'm done, I have a digital map of the whole river littered with pins, and I create a top 5 list for the absolute best looking spots. When I finally drive to the river, I have a clear plan to go target number 1, fish is hard and nothing happens. Then I go to target number 2, transforms hopefully a day of fishing into a process of strategic hunt. So you want to see trout routes. There's a beautiful, oops. Let's see. Yeah. Where all this shit comes from. Do I do I use this trout routes very often? There's a couple of spots in Wisconsin. Anyway, so on the water, gear, stealth, execution. All the planning is 90% of the battle, but if it means nothing if you can't execute on the water, this is where the research turns into a bent rod and a screaming reel. Let's start with the gear because you can't bring a knife to gunfight. There are 12-inch stockers. A big predatory trout will use every ounce of its weight and the current against you. Your standard 5 weight won't cut it for this kind of fishing, especially when you're throwing big streamers. I recommend a 7 to 8 weight. Six weight, you can certainly get the job done in many places. Heavier rods give you the backbone to cast big flies. Battery's exhausted. Back in action here. Okay, so anyway, Let's see. Log jam. So your reel needs a smooth, reliable drag for tippet. I think heavy. I rarely go lighter than 12-pound test fluoro and heavy structure. Might even use 12 to 15-pound. Trust me, the heartbreak of losing a fish of a lifetime because your tippet was too light is a pain you don't want. And don't forget there are other great options out there like modern braided leaders that can also give you an edge. So I use spinners, make my own spinners, and I use braided 10 to 15-pound test, and works like a charm. Now the approach. This may be more important than your cast. You have to be a predator, be stealthy. Big mature trout is one of the wariest animals out there. It's survived by spotting danger early. If it sees you or feels you stomping down the bank, game over. Approach your target, spot slowly, use trees and brushes to break up your outline, wear drab colored clothing, and tread lightly. Before you can even cast, just take a minute and watch. Confirm your target live from the map. See the current seams. Your first cast often is the only real shot you have to make it count. Plan where the fly or spinner needs to land and it drifts perfectly into the strike zone. Finally, you have to validate your research on the water. Your maps give you a starting point, but things change. In some bigger, slower rivers or lakes, a simple castable depth finder can be a huge help to confirm the depth of the pool. It just adds another layer of confidence. So the execution is the final step. You've used the data, you know the giants are here. You've used the maps to find their lair. You have the right gear. You've approached like a heron. And now you make the cast. You feel that little tick, the freight train slam, and then you set the hook. This is the moment where the silence ends and the art begins. The fight is a beautiful, chaotic dance, but it's following this system. You did everything possible to put yourself in the right place at the right time. You didn't get lucky, you earned it. And good luck landing anything over 20. I've lost more 20s than I've landed. So anyway, look, the system is a journey. It takes patience and a new way of thinking, but it works. It's the difference between hoping for a miracle and making your own. It sounds like your style. Make sure to it sounds like your style. Make sure you subscribe because we're just getting started. In the future streams, we'll get into specific fly selection and spinners for predators and break down how to read complex water on the river. Okay, so I also want to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know the biggest challenge you face trying to find big trout. And is it finding the right water, reading currents, choosing gear? Your feedback helps me to make content that solves your biggest problems. Let's build a community of anglers who have moved beyond luck. Conclusion, this is how I've turned chasing monster trout from a game of chance into science. It's a 3-step system. Decode trout routes, hack the public data, and become a master armchair scout. It's about layering these pieces of intel to build an undeniable case for where trophy fish has to live. Yes, it means more work up front. It means hours of staring at survey reports and satellite maps, but the payoff is huge. The confidence you have when you step in the water with a precise plan, knowing you have not just on a good river, but you're 50 yards from a long jam with a history of holding monster 25-inch browns. That feeling changes everything. It turns you from a hopeful participant into a hunter. Remember the core principle. A monster trout is a predictable product of its environment, security, food, and energy. If you can find the rare places that offset a perfect mix of those things, you'll find the fish. Stop leaving it to chance. Start your research. Build your hit list. Go execute your plan. The fish of a lifetime is out there, and it's not waiting for a lucky angler. It's waiting for a smart one. Thanks for tuning in, and tight lines and good fishing. So yeah, not only I think I've been in the right place at the right time, just because of how much water I've fished and all the information I've had, and I've also put myself in the right place at the right time. So what I do use is this. Trout routes, improved or map guide to improved trout waters of Wisconsin. This is great. Gives you the public access and easements and all the good stuff. Another good one. Trout fishing the driftless area. A trout chaser's guide to Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa trout streams. This is awesome too. Detailed maps. Zoom out so you can see. Detailed maps with all the information. This is another important piece. Okay, there you go. This one's really good. So I went through this whole book and I marked all this stuff down. And if you really want to do some good, have some good information, this thing's best. This guy's been fishing for 70 years, keeps all of his data. And he's got a list at the top streams. And the reason why he considers them the best, I think I got the top 500 or 200. The top 50 in this one. You got Spring Creek Reward. This is a great one too. Tells you little stories and certain sections to fish. So I hit these 2020, I hit the top 50. And another one right here. This one's great too. It's got the most scenic spots. And then here's all the streams, the mileage. So much information in this. So thanks for watching. I hope the microphone worked this time, and we'll see you on the next one. See you later. Bye.